I'm not really freaking out, but I feel like that's what I was supposed to do. Hello beautiful people of the internet, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I'm so excited that you joined me today. For today's video, we're going to be doing the classic mid-year freak out book tag. If you guys have been around BookTube for a while, then you have probably watched a couple of videos like this one. This is basically a tag that has been circulating through BookTube for a couple of years now. I will try my best to find the original creators of this tag and link them down below. Basically, this just serves as a check-in to see where our reading is at halfway through the year. So this is the end of June when I am filming this, and so far this year I've read 61 books. So I feel like that's pretty good. I feel like I'm not freaking out because I do have a Goodreads goal of 80 books for the year, and every single year I've exceeded that goal, so I'm not really freaking out. But let me say this loud and clear, my friends. Books do not have to be a number. You do not have to compare yourself to me or anybody else that you watch on YouTube. Please do not do that, because honestly, if you read one book, 18 books in a month, 80 books in a month, you are still a reader. If you read the newspaper, honey, you are in the same category as all of us. Please, please, please do not let comparison ruin your reading. Honestly, please do not compare yourself to anybody that's on the camera, anybody in your life. Just read what you want to read and how much you want to read. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into the books so far that I have read this year. Starting out with a bang, number one is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? If you guys have watched my recent videos, I have mentioned this book a couple of times ever since I read it. It's so good, it's so good. And it has to be Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. Guys, this is my first Christina Lauren. I had never read by them before, and my friend Elise from Literally Elise, I asked her what I should read this year. She's part of my 12 books by 12 friends, and I asked her what I should read, and she put this book on my radar. And I kind of went into it completely blind, and let's just say this one's gonna be hard to beat. If you've not heard about me talk about this book for the gajillionth time now, let me tell you what it's about. This is following our main character, Lily, and Lily's dad owns this sort of treasure hunting business where he takes people out in the middle of the desert and basically lets them treasure hunt. So Lily's dad has retired, and now she is in charge of the business. Well, the thing is that a couple of years ago, she met this boy, loved him, fell in love, but they kind of went their separate ways. And then fast forward, she's in charge of this business, taking people on treasure hunts. This guy and his friends shows up. And so she's forced to take them on this treasure hunting adventure. This was so good. You know those books that you just don't know what to go into expecting? Honestly, this book took me by surprise in so many different ways, and I loved this book with a passion. The only complaints I have about this book is that for a romance, I do feel like it was very curse word heavy, which I don't love in my romances. So I could have easily done without that, but I loved it so much that I just decided to look over that because the plot in this one was so good. Just trust me on this one. This next question is, what is the best sequel that you've read this year? And I have read a lot of good sequels this year, but I really want to highlight a whole series for this question, and that is the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The Naturals was actually the first book that I read this year, and I would say for the best sequel, I would have to say Killer Instinct and All In. These two books, book 2 and book 3 of this series, because in my personal opinion, I think this is a 5-star series, but book 2 and book 3 make the series. This is a YA Criminal Minds series that I've talked my absolute head off about, and hopefully you guys aren't sick and tired of me talking about it, because I'm going to talk about it for many years to come. I hope you guys are ready for that. Read this series. I promise you, you won't go wrong. I do want to mention real quick that book 4 gets a little bit dark. Message me if you have any questions. Question number 3 is a new release that you want to read but you haven't yet. And that is actually right over here because I bought it yesterday. Talk about freaking out, y'all. I'm so excited. Let me contain myself for just a second. This is book number 2 of the Lakefront Billionaire series that Lauren Asher has just recently come out with. She just recently released Love Redesigned. When did she come out with that book? I think last year, maybe? I thought it was the beginning of this year, but that's not right. Anyway, she just came out with it. This is book number 2. This is following Raphael, which we got to see Raphael in the first book, and it's following his love interest, which is also his nanny. I'm so excited. I do want to make a disclaimer that Lauren Asher writes spice in her books, and it's pretty prevalent throughout her books, but the reason I just absolutely adore her books so much is because of the plot and the characters. She knows how to make you fall in love with characters. I don't prefer spice in my books, but I will read Lauren Asher's grocery list, okay? I just really do think that she handles it so well, and I really do think that she just flushes out her characters in a way that some authors are still trying to get down. So I just absolutely adore Lauren Asher, and I cannot wait to dive into this one. Question number 4 is an anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have 2 for this question. Number 1 is Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is book number 3 of the Maple Hills series that Hannah Grace writes. The first book was Icebreaker, the second book was Wildfire, and this is number 3. This is Henry's books. This is the most anticipated character of the entire series for me, and I feel like I'm not alone in that. And then my second most anticipated release for the rest of the year is What Have You Done by Sherry Lapina. I just recently read Everyone Here Is Lying by Sherry Lapina, and honestly guys, Sherry Lapina has been a very mid author for me. I really enjoy her books in the moment, but they're not super memorable. However, Everyone Here Is Lying was so good, so I think her writing just gets better with each new release. So I'm really excited about this one. Question number 5. Biggest disappointment. Y'all really want to open that can of worms? Trash. This book was trash. If you did not watch my vlog where I absolutely obliterated this book, please go back and watch that video because I go into more in-depth thoughts. I did not like anything about this book. This was like one of my only 1 stars that I've given so far this year, and I think this was the book that has made me the most mad ever since I've been a reader. This book is classified as YA. It is not YA. It's very sexualized. It's bad writing. I'm sorry. I said what I said. I'm sorry, Allie Hazelwood. I know you worked hard on this, but this is not young adult, and to think that it's going in young adult hands kind of gives me the ick. These characters were insufferable. This book was bad. And that's all I gotta say. Y'all already know I got 2 more answers for this one, okay? I was pretty disappointed in some books this year. My second disappointment was One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is one of my favorite mystery thriller authors, and I have not loved everything that I've read by Ruth Ware. However, I have enjoyed enough of her books to keep continuing on with her newest releases. This one was her brand new release that I was so excited for. This was not a bad book. I gave it 3 stars. However, it did not do it for me. I don't know what's wrong with me because everyone that's reading this book is loving it. I just did not get it. Like this was an okay mystery at best. It did keep me intrigued, I would say, for most of the book, but it was so repetitive. They basically were stuck on this island and were trying to survive, and they were being picked off one by one, and I didn't like this book. I did it. I don't even remember the twist. Like that's how much it was okay. And my last disappointment so far this year is The Hunting Wives by May Cobb. Y'all, what is this? What is this? This book was the ickiest book that I've ever read in my entire life. I opened this book and I got about 40% of the way through, and let me tell you, when I was sitting on my couch, I got the biggest ick. I was like, bleh, this is disgusting. These grown women, I get rich people drama and I get lonely housewives. That's a big thriller trope. These grown women were having relationships with these minor boys. No, I closed the book and said no thank you. Question number 6 is my biggest surprise this year, and that has to be Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Now, it is not a surprise that I really enjoyed a Sarah Adams. I have really enjoyed everything that I've read by this author, but I didn't expect to love this one this much. I gave this book 6 stars. This was an absolute wonderful time. I had the time of my life with this book, and I loved it so incredibly much. This main character, Annie, I related to her on more levels than one, and more levels than I would like to admit. And I think that's what makes a book so special, is when you can relate to the main character. I just love that. And I really loved Will. I loved this whole banter they had going on. I thought that this was one of the most adorable books that I've ever read, and definitely a big surprise. Another big surprise for me, and actually it kind of catapulted me into a whole era, is Fable by Adrienne Young. This put me in my pirate era, and I've not gotten out since. I'd always seen this book and I've always been intrigued by it, but I never really thought I would go to pick it up until I got in my pirate romance era, okay? In Practice Makes Perfect, Annie likes to read pirate romances, and kind of in the back of my head I was like,
like I've never read a pirate romance. Let's try one.
I loved this book. This book specifically. I did read the second book. It was okay. It definitely did not shine a light to this one. This one is so good, and the pirate vibes are immaculate. Question number 7. My favorite new author, or new to me author. The first one would have to be Mika Kent, and I have just recently talked about her books in a couple of recent videos. She writes really short, very fast thrillers, and I find most of her books on KU. And let me tell you, Mika Kent is a gem, y'all. I have absolutely ate up both books that I read by her, and I definitely want to read more of her backlist. I read Unmissing by Mika Kent, and I also read The Stillwater Girls by Mika Kent, which you guys will hear my thoughts on very soon. And some of my friends are going to be so happy to hear me say this. Another new favorite author to me is Abby Jimenez. Now hold on, I'm not even gonna lie, Part of Your World was not a favorite of mine, but I really did enjoy Yours Truly, and I really loved Just for the Summer. Everybody and their sister's cousin has been talking about Abby Jimenez, and I know what you guys are talking about now. Question number 8. Newest fictional crush. You guys are asking me to cheat on Aaron Warner? How could you do that? I have read quite a few really good fictional men this year. However, I think the top spot has to go to Prince Maxon, but I still love Aaron Warner. Question number 9, newest favorite character. And I have read a lot of good characters this year, y'all, but I'm gonna have to go back to Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Annie is probably my favorite female character that I've ever read about. I see myself a lot in her, and it makes it so much better when you can relate to a character. I just love her. And then my second favorite character would probably have to have been Dean from the Naturals series. Dean is one of the teens that is part of the Naturals program, and if you have read this series with me or have even talked about this series with me, I have probably brought up Dean's name because I absolutely adore Dean. Question number 10. A book that made you cry. And I had quite a few books so far this year that made me cry, but the one that sticks out the most that made me ugly cry. There's a difference between just a little tear every once in a while and an ugly cry. This book made me ugly cry. The Edge of In-Between by Lorelei Saverin. This was also one of my biggest surprises of this year, but it's also a book that made me cry. Made me sob for hours. That's a little dramatic, maybe just for a few minutes. This is also a book that handles grief in a way that I have never in my life read. This is one of the best grief representations that I've ever read in a book. I will say that this one is a hard one to go into. It's a Secret Garden retelling. If you guys have ever read The Secret Garden, she loses her parents right in the beginning of the story. It's basically her journey to try and figure out how to deal with this grief. I'm gonna start crying talking about it. Y'all, this is the most beautiful book. It's so good, and the representation and just the utter display of the raw and real grief, so good. Question number 11, a book that made you happy. And I actually have a couple for this one, and the first one that I got is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I buddy read this one with my friends Keely and Keisha, and I think buddy reading this one was such a good idea because this was such a cute book. And we even did like a themed reading sprint for this one, and I think that mixed with the fact that this is the cutest book ever just makes this a whole bundle of joy for me. If you have heard about Lynn Painter before, it is for good reason because she knows how to write characters. This is a YA romance that takes place between two enemies to lovers. This is a YA romance that follows a main character who is trying to get the attention of her crush, and she wants him to ask her to prom. So she goes to her childhood nemesis and asks him to help her, and they start fake dating. This is a warm hug and butterflies in your stomach all rolled into one. Another book that made me happy this year was Live and Let Chai by Bree Baker. This entire series I feel like is going to be a 5-star cozy mystery series. This is just adorable. This cozy mystery follows a woman named Everly, and Everly owns an iced tea shop. Everything is just going dandy until one of her customers is found dead with one of her iced tea jars right next to him. Question number 12 is most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year. And these two books I actually received from my sweet friends, and they are the most beautiful books I think I have in my collection. The first one is Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. This was gifted to me by my sweet friend Gwen, and it has the really pretty sprayed edges, and it comes with a little tassel, and I just love this picture. I normally don't like people on the front of my books, but this one is just stunning. And then next, my friend Wendy over at Wendy's Expiring Reads, she gifted me the second book in this series in the same edition, and this one is Daughter of the Siren Queen, and it also has the sprayed edges. This one is green, and it also has the little tassel. And look how stunning she is. She is stunning! Thank you again, Gwen and Wendy. And the last question of this tag is, what are the books that you still need to read by the end of the year? And I do have quite a bit of series that I want to finish this year. However, I do also have my 12 books by 12 friends. So let me tell you those now. So I do want to finish the Harry Potter series this year. I'm not sure if this is going to be doable or not because I'm reading the series very slowly because I do want to take my time and enjoy it because I am reading this for the first time, so I want to take my time with it. I do want to finish the Selection series by Kara Cass. I also need to read Binding 13. I started that book and have not picked it up since, and I would like to know what everybody is talking about. Now, let me tell you the 12 books that I have left of my 12 books by 12 friends. So I'm not doing great with this list. I have read 4 out of the 12, which is okay. It's not bad. So here's what I have left. I have Just Another Love Song by Carrie Winfrey, The Souls of Lost Lake by Jamie Jo Wright, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin, Wayward by Amelia Hart, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which I think I'm probably going to pick up next month, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and Fighting Words by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. So those are the books that I still have left on that list, and I really would like to finish and complete that list. All right, my friends, that is my mid-year book check-in. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below what is your favorite book that you've read this year and what's been your biggest disappointment of this year as well, because we just like to open that can of worms every time we get together, don't we? Just remember one thing, it doesn't matter how much you read. If you read something, you are a reader. All right, my friends, I love you so much. Just know this world is a better place with you in it, and I will see you on my next video. Bye, guys.